building, to me, is an hive. It's for evil. I think there's something buried in there.
John and Margaret Oakley moved into the top floor flat of the converted Victorian house, and at first, nothing suggested the events that would unfold.
It was a gradual thing, to be quite honest. It wasn't really until some major situations occurred that I came to realise there was something not quite right. There's something inside yourself seemed to be there, something in the darkness, but you can't see and you don't know what it is. We were asleep in the bed about 2 o'clock in the morning. It was oppressive. I was paralysed with fear. I was trying to put my hand in the bed to put the light on, for wondering what I was going to see. It stopped immediately and flooded the room with light. It's even greater shock really to see that there wasn't anything there. Which was even worse, you know, because you can't defend yourself against nothing. After that, I searched that flat. I looked up the chimney, I looked behind everything, and I even went up in the roof, and I couldn't see a thing. I don't want to go down that road where those wings came from. That was from a very dark place indeed. I knew after that the force in that building was evil. The whole atmosphere of the place was so bad I didn't want to stay.
Days later, the Oakleys fled the flat. Sometime afterwards, Dean and Georgina Rogers became tenants.
I don't know what they were. I don't pretend to know what ghosts are, but they were present in that building.
And Georgina believes one, a female presence, began to focus on a particular member of the Rogers family.
Okay, well, I guess we've got to do some marketing. Instead of handing out flyers on Vinewood Boulevard.
It felt like she was present behind me every time I bathed him, every time I dressed him, every time I changed his nappy, every time I fed him. When she entered the room, as soon as she entered the room, whether she opened the door to enter or whether she came through the wall, you would know straight away that she was there. Her presence was better felt than the presence of a living person. When Connor would wake in the night and cry, me and Dean would wait, because sometimes she would go to him and shush him back to sleep, and we would actually hear her over the cot. Me and Connor were in the flat one day on our own. And he was playing up. And I lost my temper with him. I shouted.
Something that she regrets.
At that point I felt threatened and scared that she would have the power to do that.
Nevertheless, Georgina felt something far worse lay elsewhere in the house.
It seems that the further you went down in the building, the more evil it felt.
Ed Payne and his wife were the occupants of the ground floor flat.
We thought that we were being looked at, not just on the outside, the inside. And it was a terrible, terrible feeling that someone was scrutinising you all the time, and you couldn't see it. And it was a real deep precipice. When I put my head on the pillow to go to sleep, I heard a banging noise. And it was though it was coming from an inside wall, someone trying to get out. A couple of nights later, I had to go to sleep. And all of a sudden, I heard a baby crying. And it was in our bedroom. And I got up from the bed and I walked to the wardrobe where I thought the noise was coming from. When I near the wardrobe, the baby stopped crying. I had to open the wardrobe because it was just had to find out. When I put my hand on the leather on the left-hand side, the linen was quite warm, as though the baby was lying on it. When I put my hand on the right-hand side, it was lovely cold. I knew where the sounds were coming from. They were distinctive. Whatever was in there was it's playing games with you.
But if something was playing games with him, the games were about to become more terrifying.
I went up to the hallway. I saw a black mass. It was though you were being attacked, and I tell you, I was scared. I was frightened. It looked evil. Obviously, I couldn't tell my wife I didn't want to know. It was a few days after that my wife said to me, Ed, I've got something to tell you. She said, I'm scared. I saw a black mass, just a few inches from the ground. Just looked evil. I can't go on. I just can't say no more about it because I'm getting upset.
Ed's wife died 4 years later. To this day, he feels her death could be linked to their stay in the house. Stretching over 20,000 miles, through cityscapes and countryside to some of the most deserted and dark corners of the country are Britain's railways. Yet, stories told of this remote, forest-shrouded train crossing at Naworth, Cumbria, suggest it may not be just the living travelling along them.
When you're talking to the locals, you discover this fear of going in the hours at night, and level-minded people saying they would never pass that area at night because of the creepy atmosphere.
soft guy. I've been on the railway club for 30 years. I've also done tours in Northern Ireland when I was in the army, and I wasn't scared. But working it now within that wood, I was terrified.
For signalman Dennis Simpson, what began as a normal night shift was to change his life forever.
We used to go to Narwith when the engineers were working on the line.
Stationed in this signal box in the dead of night, Dennis would have to walk up the track and lower the barriers to let trains pass the crossing.
It's like a place in the middle of nowhere, trees hanging over, wind blowing, and it is very, very, very weird place to go to. There's no lights or nothing. The telephone rang. I answered it. The signal in the door said there's a train coming. It's just left me now. Silent, dark, that's all it was. And all of a sudden, it was halfway up the track to the crossing. The whole body was like tingles, like cold, and I was actually shaking. The sound was children crying. The mother or father. I was scared, and it was a horrible, horrible sound. That's why I ran to the crossing and all the barriers. Terrifying. Terrifying. I actually ran back to the signal box and locked the door. And I had to sit there in that box, and I was hoping there'd be no more trains to save us going back out.
Dennis refused to work the crossing again. But he would not be alone in believing that the woods held a dark secret. One night, signalman Colin Metcalf headed to Narwith.
I'd heard of rumours of Narwith being spooky in the area, and I took it just to be as nonsense until the night I actually drove down.
Rather than wait in the signal box surrounded by forest, Colin parked his car at the crossing, waiting for the trains to come.
I noticed there was these lights kept appearing over on the wood on the far side of the railway, and they were appearing and disappearing in a U-turn. And I was trying to find out actually what the lights were for. I was wondering why all of a sudden started barking.
Airdropping propaganda works for every invading army of the last 100 years. Why wouldn't it work for us? Well done.
Hello, I'm sorry. Something else has come up. Can you please come back to my office?
Could I have a light, please? I looked for my lighter in the car. There was no figure there at all. It disappeared. I was absolutely petrified. Had no time to walk away from the car, walk to the woods, or walk in front of the car. No way. I know what I seen. There was a figure there, and then there wasn't a figure there.
After alerting headquarters, Colin raced from Narwith. Still troubled by his experience and looking for answers, Dennis Simpson turned to local historian Robert French.
was August the 30th, 1926. It was at 1:18 in the afternoon. The weather was clear. Everything was perfect. There was a charabanc, which was the early form of transport, early form of buses, was going on a pleasure trip. I had to pass by now worth level crossing. A new signalman had taken job 7 days earlier at Mr. Oliver.
Yet, as the signalman opened the gate for the charabanc to cross the tracks, the trip turned to horror as a train sped towards it.
The train was doing 50 miles an hour when the collision occurred. The incident was obviously horrendous in nature when 8 local people died.
Of the 8 killed, 4 members of the same family were among the dead. A Mrs. Campbell, her sister-in-law, and her 2 children. And one final chilling detail would offer no peace to Colin Metcalf and Dennis Simpson.
This is the wood where they laid the bodies, just down there. And it still haunts me to this day.
I wouldn't like to go back again anyways. And I didn't go back from that night anyways. I totally refused to go back.
I know, with 2 children crying and they were ghosts.
Flintshire, northeast Wales. A land filled with dark and mysterious tales of spirits and hauntings finds perhaps its most chilling in the foreboding confines of a 17th century Jacobean mansion. Plas Teg.
Plas Teg was originally built in 1610 by Sir John Trevor, and Plas Teg means fair house, fair mansion. But I think you could look at the house's history over the centuries, and it's got anything but a fair history. It's dark, it's gruesome, it's full of bloodthirsty deeds and sorrowful events. You have to remember that when Plas Teg was built, we're living in the age of witchcraft, and there was a great battle going on between the forces of Christian religion and the much darker, older pagan beliefs. It's noticeable in this house that Sir John Trevor, as far as we know, had a witch sign carved on the fireplace in the Great Hall. And this was designed to prevent evil spirits from coming in down the chimney. Looking at the history of the house, clearly it was one of those symbols that really didn't work.
Yet, for one man, unaware of the house's history, the offer of lodging in Plas Teg with the mansion owner, while he did some work there, was one he found too tempting to resist.
Our family business at the time was accountancy, and we handled the books for Plas Teg. Within a couple of days of moving in, I just woke up in the middle of the night. Was as if 20 or 30 people were stamping, thundering up and down on the floor above. It's just shock and great confusion. I mean, I knew there was just the 2 of us there in the house.
But within a matter of days, Mark would become convinced that it was not just he and the owner that walked the mansion. reported on the road outside the mansion.
But the polite thing to do would be to find these motherfuckers, right? I was just parked there for a minute when they took it. They went east back into town. Some motherfuckers saw what happened and took off back there. So maybe they look they can know what's up. I don't know.
There was a
I
woman
don't even
walking
really
along
give
the
a
dual
fuck.
carriageway near Class E. Found it strange that every time I went there I couldn't find anything. I recall one instance where
Hey, yo, I got my guy
reported having swapped a pedestrian on the road outside Class A Hall, which resulted in the force sending out a helicopter and a search
But the
dog
casino
to look
car,
for a
that
casualty.
motherfucker most likely got insurance anyway.
The driver claimed that after she hit the woman pedestrian, she could see no sign of the victim. The police, with a helicopter team surveying the road and nearby fields, could
I got
also
a text.
find no
It's from the
trace.
people that took off in that car. They had a place called Benny's Body Shop. You know where that's at? We better get over there quick before they strip that shit. That motherfucker gonna be on some bricks in a minute. I knew that thing was too
Mark
flashy.
Ridgway was
Fucking
facing
crock.
his last
Fuck all
night
that
in
shit.
Class
You
10.
better go to Detroit and give me some American muscle in this motherfucker. Eyes on the road. Hey, you drive?
It felt as if somebody's face was right in my face. It was there.
Mark left the mansion, never to return. But there were still reports of strange happenings on the road outside Class 10. A number of cars had crashed coming off the dual carriageway, with no other vehicles involved.
It's about 10:30. I was on my way to Wrexham to meet a friend, and as I was driving, hit the brakes and skidded the car. It stood, and I just sat there, absolutely petrified. Half of me wanted to get out and look, but the other half of me, I just remember having my hands on the steering wheel and my knuckles were white. It's just an awful feeling to think that you could kill somebody. Police officer knocked on my window. He asked me, was I alright? And I said no, I wasn't. You know, I said, I think I've hit somebody. A girl. And could you go and look for me? The police officer came back and he said there's no one there. I just thought, well, there's got to be. There's got to be somebody there. I didn't think they believed me, actually. I'd actually seen somebody until I described what the lady looked like. And he said, well, haven't you heard? What? About the ghost?
Could Class 10's dark history hold the key to the sightings on the nearby road?
John Trevor had a daughter, Dorothy. As was common then, rich families would try to marry into rich families. And he utterly lined up and married them to a good estate in Cheshire.
Yet Dorothy did not agree with her father's plans for marriage and plotted to run away with her true love, a local farmer's son.
Now, a week before their eloped, Dorothy took some family jewels and hid them in the well nearby to the house.
Dorothy and her lover arranged to make their escape under the cover of night. But first, she walked alone to retrieve the hidden jewellery that would fund their future happiness.
She made her way to the well in the dark, because she obviously couldn't show a light in case someone saw where she was going. She couldn't find the hiding place. And in her panic to find them, slipped and fell down the well.
As Dorothy lay in darkness, a distraught lover thought that he had been jilted.
Father hung himself in the tree where they'd arranged to meet, and barely 2 days later, Dorothy's body was finally recovered from the well, where she died.
Does local folklore offer too convenient an explanation that the figure seen by drivers is the ghost of the tragic daughter? Perhaps. But consider this, the route that would have reunited the lovers cuts across the road. Mid-19th century Britain, Swindon Railway Works, where thousands of men would risk their lives in brutal and dangerous conditions, toiling to build transport for a new age.
Hammer shots, such things as that, you know. Rolling mills, all the hot red top steel coming round.
There was shunting going on. People got crushed with the shunting or injured and hanged.
Oh, it's a dangerous place to work.
So many people got killed on those railway workshops.
When the works closed in 1986, security men were stationed to patrol the vast semi-derelict site.
I used to go around to do the rounds, so you went with hand swords. I'm walking round, and the building is breathing, and you hear the creak, the cracks going on, and it's spooky.
Ghostly, very haunted place.
There was one place I hate going, and that was Nome's shop. I always thought there was something there.
And the guards soon began to feel that they were not alone.
Can you drive? Eyes on the road. Can you drive?
Broke down in fear.
After the apparent disappearance of the figure, many guards were too fearful to work the site.
The blokes come on the job and we took them round and showed them what to do, but as soon as they had to go on their own, that was it, they come off the job. They just said, well, we don't want that, too frightening. One bloke I always remember, he went out for an hour and he come back, he said, that's it, he went home and finished. He just couldn't stand it. He was frightened.
But one night watchman who remained believes he came face to face with the figure they say haunts the works.
I can say that this night was any particular, in any way different to any other night. Until, you know, until it kind of all happened. Well, I was coming towards the end of that patrol.
As she was coming down the stairwell,
I caught a movement out of the corner of my eye.
I saw a figure.
This figure was looking into the inside of this clock.
And he challenged him.
And as he did so,
he vanished. He just suddenly wasn't there anymore.
You gotta swing by one night. I'll totally fit you.
I hear ya.
Is it possible the figure could have been a ghostly echo of the railway works past?
Hey, motherfucker.
It is certain that the clock was one that Great Western Railway trains set their timetable to. And over the years it would have been the duty of various workers to make sure the clocks were in working order.
The way Steve described it, it was a man that used to look out at these two big master timepieces we had in the works. There's no other explanation. Nobody could have got in there because the doors were locked both sides.
Almost too good to be true.
Everyone was crazy about the idea of getting Paul close to the hospital and his doctor. It was the most important overriding thought in the entire family's mind. So they were happy to be moving to Connecticut.
Karen and her husband Ed moved a few things into their new home. It was Ed's first look at the place.
Yeah. Dining room, kitchen. 2 bedrooms upstairs. Closet in here. Kitchen's really bright.
Ed liked what he saw.
This is nice. What do you think?
Great. Great. Karen was eager to inspect the basement now that it was clean. There was at least one room in the back she hadn't seen. The room held clues to the woman's past.
this is.
Freezer sometime. At that point, I realized that it was a funeral home. Thought, how can we live in this place? How can I bring my children into this home? What kind of environment is this going to be if they see this stuff?
Ed attempted to calm his wife. He told her even if it had been a funeral home, no one had died there. The couple now realized why the rent was so inexpensive. They had no choice but to move in.
We've used every dime of money that we had saved on Paul's illness and on renting this house and moving down here. We had no place else to go.
Karen and Ed agreed. They would hide the home's morbid past from their children.
My precious Paul, as sick as he was, should not be exposed to these things. Should not be exposed to these things. Should not be exposed to these things. Should not be.
Very kind. And, yeah, we got some positive news today, COVID-wise. I don't know if I believe it, seeing as how I know about 20 people who have COVID or have had it this month. But Dr. Fauci says we are no longer in the pandemic phase of the virus. We are now transitioning from the pandemic phase to the awkward teenage phase. So instead of your hands, wash your face. And yet there are hundreds of nuts out there still spreading nonsense, touting unproven, ineffective medications, calling for Dr. Fauci's head. One of those people is running for governor of Arizona. She is a former Phoenix local newscaster named Carrie Lake, who's trying to make a name for herself by exiting the field.
When I'm governor, I want to make ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and other inexpensive, effective drugs that we know a lot about over the counter. We shouldn't have to feel like drug addicts trying to go out there to buy ivermectin. It was Anthony Fauci who kept that from us. I'm encouraging any lawman here, and I'm talking sheriffs, I don't think it'll happen in Maricopa County, but I'm looking for someone tough like maybe Sheriff Lamb, to issue a warrant for Anthony Fauci's arrest out of Arizona.
Dum 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 dum. That campaign jingle is my gift to you, Carrie. We're at the point I was fearing that we'd reach where Donald Trump is almost mainstream. He's like the moderate now. Mitt Romney's a hippie, Trump's the moderate, and then we have all these crazies. Trump being president was like opening Pandora's box. There are so many genuinely frightening individuals running for office, and then you have the ones who are already in office, like Venmo Lester and Tan Mom doing podcasts together.
I believe in an America that is strong enough to face disinformation without the Twitter overlords like being the arbiters of truth. And
I believe in people. People are smart enough to figure it out.
In fairness, when you're Marjorie Taylor Greene, everyone seems smart. The same way goldfish think little scuba divers live in the tank with them. The woman who thinks the jury is still out on 9/11 says people are smart enough to figure it out. And there's a kind of a funny scenario in progress in Ohio in the Republican race for Senate there. The top two candidates are a Trumper named Josh Mandel and a former never-Trumper named J.D. Vance, who wrote the book Hillbilly Elegy. Now, this is Josh Mandel.
Josh Mandel. Pro-God, pro-gun, pro-Trump.
And pro-Keisha for the look of it, but Josh got the backing of the powerful Club for Growth, which ran ads attacking his opponent, J.D. Vance, who supports Trump for not supporting Trump.
J.D. Vance, in his own words.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious.
On Twitter, Vance called Trump, quote, reprehensible, an idiot.
Yeah, that's right? I mean, is that wrong? Oh, but then J.D. smelled which way the wind was blowing off the porta potty that is today's Republican Party, and he changed his tune. All of a sudden, he decided not only isn't Trump noxious and reprehensible, he's now the greatest president of his lifetime, and J.D.'s previous opinions, he says, were stupid.
All of us say stupid things, and I happen to say stupid things very publicly.
Which is really a great qualification for a future senator. Well, for me, I say stupid things very publicly. But guess what? It worked. Trump actually endorsed J.D., the guy who called him an idiot, which leaves the Club for Growth now in the hilarious position of being mad at Trump for endorsing a candidate who isn't sufficiently pro-Trump. It's an I hate Mexican standoff. And this is a new ad, and I'm not making this up. This pro-Trump super PAC attacks Trump, saying he got suckered by J.D. Vance the same way he got suckered when he endorsed Mitt Romney in 2012.
I'm a never Trump guy. Has Trump seen this?
President Trump tweeting a surprise endorsement.
An ad for IBS medication. Anyway, so their position now is that Trump is too gullible or weak-minded or whatever to realize he's endorsing a candidate who thinks he's an idiot, which is confusing, but fortunately, J.D. Vance's new ad does a lot to clear it up.
I'm J.D. Vance. My opponents who support Trump called him an idiot for endorsing me after I called Trump an idiot. But Donald Trump knows I then called myself an idiot for calling him an idiot. And only an idiot would call someone an idiot for calling someone who called themselves an idiot. Don't be an